My wife emptied our joint account for her boss. She forgot I'm the one who set up the security protocols. My name is William Hartley. I'm 53 years old, and I've spent the last 28 years of my life building a career as a senior financial security analyst here in Cincinnati, Ohio. If you don't know what that means, it's simple. I design the systems that keep other people's money safe. I build walls around assets. I create protocols that stop unauthorized access. I think 3 steps ahead of the threat. It's methodical work. Quiet. The kind of job where success means nothing happens. No breaches, no theft, no panic. Most people find it boring. My wife Carol certainly did. The call came on a Wednesday evening in late September. I remember because it was trash night, and I just wheeled the bins to the curb. Our neighborhood was settling into that golden autumn light, the kind that makes Cincinnati look almost picturesque. The maples were just starting to turn. I was thinking about raking leaves that weekend. My phone buzzed. Carol's name lit up the screen. She was supposedly at a real estate conference in Louisville. 3 days of seminars on luxury property marketing. She left Monday morning with 2 suitcases, and that new perfume I'd noticed her wearing lately. Something floral and expensive that she'd never asked me to buy. "William," she said when I answered. Her voice had that practice quality, the one she used when closing a difficult sale. Smooth, rehearsed. "I need to tell you something, and I need you to just listen." I walked back inside, closed the door behind me, set my keys on the counter next to the coffee maker. "All right, I'm not coming home." I said nothing, just waited. "I've met someone. It's been happening for a while now." She paused, and I could hear her take a breath, steeling herself. "It's David, my boss. We're in love, William. He understands me. He sees my potential in ways you never have." David Chun, the flashy real estate mogul with the downtown penthouse and the Tesla and the perfectly styled silver hair. I'd met him twice. Once at a company holiday party 3 years ago, and once last spring at some charity auction Carol had dragged me to. He had that aggressive charisma that filled a room, the kind of man who always seemed to be closing a deal, even when ordering coffee. "I see," I said quietly. "That's it." Her voice cracked slightly. "You're not going to fight for us? For 20 years of marriage?" 20 years. Jessica had just turned 19, finishing her sophomore year at Ohio State. Our daughter. The house had felt too empty after she left for college. Carol had thrown herself even deeper into work. I'd assumed it was how she coped with the empty nest. "What do you want me to say, Carol?" "I want you to feel something," she snapped, the smooth facade cracking. "But I suppose that's too much to ask from you." David was right. You become stagnant, William. No ambition, no fire. You're content to just exist. I leaned against the kitchen counter, staring at the pot of coffee I'd made that morning, now cold and forgotten. "Is there anything else?" "Yes." Her voice hardened again. "I've already initiated a transfer from our joint savings account. All of it. $185,000. My lawyer said it was a smart move. That's our retirement fund, and I earned half of it. More than half, considering I've been carrying this relationship for years. The joint account, the one we built over 2 decades, the one that was supposed to fund our retirement, maybe a condo in Florida someday, trips to visit Jessica wherever her life took her. "I understand," I said. "You understand?" She laughed, bitter and sharp. "God, you're pathetic. Don't try to contest this. William, David has the best lawyers in Ohio. You'll just embarrass yourself. Take care, Carol." I ended the call before she could respond. Set the phone face down on the granite countertop that she'd insisted we install 3 years ago. State-of-the-art kitchen, she'd said, for entertaining. We'd hosted exactly 2 dinner parties since then. Then I walked to my home office, sat down at my desk, and opened my laptop. The house was silent, except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of the miller's dog barking next door. I logged into our bank's online portal, entered my credentials, navigated to the joint savings account. There it was. Transfer initiated at 4:47 p.m. $185,000. Destination: An account in Carol's name only. Status, pending. I stared at that word. Pending. And despite everything, despite the betrayal and the cruelty and the casual destruction of 20 years, I felt the ghost of a smile. Pending. She'd forgotten who I was. What I did. What I was capable of. Let me take you back 6 months. To March. It was a Tuesday evening, and Carol was supposedly at a late showing. A waterfront property in Hyde Park, she'd said. Big commission potential. She'd left the house at 6, wearing that new perfume. I was in the kitchen making dinner, just pasta, nothing fancy, when her phone rang on the counter. She'd forgotten it, rushing out the door. The screen lit up. David Chun. I didn't answer it, didn't touch it, just watched it ring until it went to voicemail. Then it rang again. David Chun. 11:47 p.m. Who calls their employee's personal phone at midnight about a work matter? Carol came home at 12:20. Breathless, apologetic. The showing had run late, she said. The clients were very demanding. She grabbed her phone, saw the missed calls, and her face went through a series of micro-expressions I'd learned to read over 20 years of marriage. Surprise, worry, calculation. David, she said quickly, too quickly. He was probably calling about the Westwood listing. It's closing tomorrow. She stepped outside to call him back. I finished washing dishes and said nothing, but I'm a financial security analyst. I notice patterns. I see anomalies. It's what I've trained myself to do for nearly 3 decades. And once you see one anomaly, you start looking for others. The credit card statement from February showed dinner charges at Boca, that expensive Italian place downtown, on a night Carol said she was showing properties in Mason. The hotel charge in Columbus during a weekend she claimed she was at a real estate seminar. The new wardrobe. The gym membership she'd suddenly started using religiously. The way she angled her laptop screen away from me when I walked into her room. I didn't confront her. That's not how I operate. In my line of work, you don't reveal what you know until you've built your defenses. You gather information. You plan. You prepare. So I started documenting. A simple spreadsheet. Dates, times, charges, inconsistencies. Where she said she was versus where the evidence suggested she'd been. It was methodical. Dispassionate. The way I approached any security assessment. 3 months ago, in June, I saw the email. Carol had left her laptop open on the kitchen table. She was upstairs showering. I wasn't snooping. It was right there on the screen. Her inbox displayed. An email from David Chun. Can't wait to see you in Cleveland this weekend. I booked us the suite at the Ritz. We can finally talk about making this official. Cleveland. She'd told me she was going to a training conference in Toledo. That night, after she'd gone to bed, I sat in my office for 3 hours. Not angry. Anger is reactive, unproductive. I was calculating, planning. I opened a new account at a different bank. Individual in my name only. Then I systematically began restructuring our finances. I transferred the bulk of our assets, the real money, the investments, the funds we'd accumulated over 2 decades, into the new account. Slowly, over 6 weeks. Amounts small enough not to trigger her attention, since she rarely checked the statements anyway. I left $25,000 in the joint savings account. Enough to seem substantial if someone glanced at it casually. Not enough to actually be our life savings. Then I implemented the security protocols. My specialty. Any transfer over $10,000 from the joint account now required dual authentication. A 48-hour mandatory hold. And most importantly, a secondary verification. An automated call to my private cell phone with a one-time code that had to be entered within 30 minutes, or the transaction would automatically cancel. I built these systems for banks, for corporations, for people who had far more to lose than $185,000. Building one for myself took an afternoon. I finished the restructuring in August, created a paper trail that documented every step, every transfer, every change. Legal, traceable, airtight. And then I waited. The morning after Carol's call, I woke at my usual time, 5:45 a.m. I made coffee, read the newspaper, went for my morning walk around the neighborhood. The routine was comforting, familiar. At 8:30, my private cell phone rang. The automated call from the bank security system. This is First National Security. A transfer of $185,000 from account ending in 4729 requires verification. Please enter your 6-digit authorization code, or press 1 to deny this transaction. I press 1. Transaction denied. Account holder has been notified. Thank you. I went to work. Drove my usual route down Madison Road. Parked in my usual spot at the office complex where I'd worked for the past 12 years. I answered emails. Reviewed security protocols for a new client. Had lunch at my desk. Turkey sandwich, apple, black coffee. At 2:15 p.m., my work phone rang. Carol. I didn't answer. She called again. And again. 6 times in an hour. At 4:30, she finally left a voicemail. Her voice was shaking, hovering between fury and panic. William, what the hell did you do? The transfer didn't go through. The bank says it requires dual authorization. Fix this. Now, call me back immediately. I didn't call back. Instead, I sent a single text message. My attorney will be in contact soon. Then I drove to the office of Marcus Webb, a divorce attorney who'd been my client for 5 years. I designed the security system for his firm's financial accounts. He owed me a favor, and more importantly, he was ruthless. I need to file for divorce, I told him, sitting in his leather chair overlooking the Cincinnati skyline. And I need it done quickly and cleanly. Marcus leaned back, fingers steepled. Tell me everything. I did. I showed him the spreadsheet of Carol's movements, the credit card statements, the emails I documented, the restructured accounts, the failed transfer attempt. He reviewed it all with the careful attention of a man who'd seen 1,000 broken marriages, but still found this one interesting. William, he said finally, this is airtight. She'll fight, but she won't win. The account restructuring was legal. The security protocols were legal. She attempted to unilaterally empty a joint account without consultation. That's going to look very bad for her. I don't want to destroy her, I said quietly. I just want out. Clean. Fair. Fair. Marcus raised an eyebrow. She tried to take your retirement. Fair, I repeated. I'm not interested in revenge. Just protection. Marcus nodded slowly. All right, let's do this properly. Carol showed up at the house that evening. I was in the kitchen, reviewing the preliminary divorce documents Marcus had prepared. I heard her key in the lock, the door slamming open. She stormed in, still dressed in her real estate power suit. Navy blue, designer label, the one she wore when she wanted to intimidate. Her face was flushed, her carefully styled blonde hair slightly disheveled. What the hell did you do? She demanded, her voice echoing in our empty home. The money is frozen. I set down my pen calmly. No, Carol, the money isn't frozen. It's exactly where it's supposed to be. She thrust her phone at me, showing the bank's message. Transaction denied. Dual authorization required. Contact account administrator. Fix this, she said. Right now. I walked past her to the coffee pot, poured myself a cup, methodical. Calm. We need to talk about the divorce. Divorce? She laughed, sharp and brittle. You can't afford to divorce me. I'll take half of everything. David's lawyers are welcome to try. I interrupted quietly. But they'll find that there isn't much to take. Her expression shifted. Confusion replacing fury. What are you talking about? We have $185,000 in savings. We have $25,000 in the joint account. I corrected. The rest has been legally transferred over the past 3 months into a separate account, in my name, with documentation of every step. The color drained from her face. You can't do that. That's our money. I earned half of it. Did David tell you that? I asked, taking a sip of coffee. That you could just empty our accounts without consultation? That it was a smart move. She stared at me, and for the first time in months, maybe years, I saw something like real emotion in her eyes. Fear. This isn't legal, she said, but her voice had lost its certainty. It's completely legal. I restructured our finances, made withdrawals from a joint account that I had every right to access, moved them to an individual account that is solely mine. You can check with your lawyer, but Marcus assures me it's airtight. Marcus Webb. Her voice rose. You already have a lawyer? You filed. Yesterday morning. You'll be served with papers tomorrow. She paced the kitchen, her heels clicking against the tile floor. The same tile she'd picked out 6 years ago, insisting on imported Italian ceramic. She'd said it would increase the resale value. You did this because I'm leaving you, she said finally. This is what you do? You punish me financially? No, I said, setting down my coffee cup. I did this because 6 months ago, I noticed you were pulling away. I saw the signs, the late nights, the inconsistencies, the missed calls from David at midnight. I'm a security analyst, Carol. I plan for threats. You became a threat to my financial security, so I protected myself. You're paranoid, she spat. David said you were paranoid. A paranoid old man who sees danger in everything. David's right, I said calmly. I am paranoid. It's kept me employed for 28 years, and it's saved my retirement. She grabbed a ceramic vase from the counter, a piece she bought at some art fair in Columbus, and hurled it against the wall. It shattered, pieces scattering across the floor. This isn't over, she hissed. Not even close. David and I have plans. We're moving to Arizona, opening a luxury real estate firm. I don't need your money. Then the divorce should be simple, I said. My lawyer will be in touch with the settlement terms. She dug in her purse, pulled out her key, and threw it onto the kitchen table with metallic clatter. You'll regret this, William. You're nothing without me. A boring, paranoid old man with no life. She left, the door slamming behind her hard enough to rattle the windows. I stood in the kitchen for a long moment, surrounded by broken ceramic and the fading scent of her expensive perfume. Then I got a broom and dustpan and cleaned up the mess. Every shard, every fragment. When I finished, I poured another cup of coffee and called Marcus. She came to the house. I said, it went about as expected. Good, Marcus replied. Let her make mistakes. Every outburst helps our case. 3 days later, I received a thick envelope from Carol's attorney. The return address showed a downtown law firm I recognized, Jensen Howell and Associates. Expensive, connected, David's lawyers, no doubt. The letter was predictable. Aggressive language about marital assets and equitable distribution. Demands for full financial disclosure. Threats of legal action for what they termed financial manipulation and concealment of jointly owned property. David Chin was copied on the correspondence. His name right there at the bottom of the CC list. So her boss, her lover, was directly involved in our divorce, using his money and his connections to pressure me. I showed the letter to Marcus during our meeting that afternoon. Typical intimidation tactics, he said, barely glancing at it. They think you'll fold. That you're some meek analyst who'll be scared by letterhead and legal jargon. They're wrong. They are. But we need be strategic here. Marcus leaned forward. They're going to fight for half of everything. They don't know yet that everything is far less than they think. When they find out, things will get uglier. Let them, I said. I'm prepared. But I wasn't entirely prepared for what came next. The following week, I received an unexpected email at my work address. The sender was Thomas Brennan, someone I hadn't heard from in 5 years. Tom had been my colleague at Cincinnati Mutual before moving to a VP position at Prestige Realty Group, Carol's firm. The subject line read, urgent, need to discuss D. Chun. I called him from my car during lunch break. William, Tom said, his voice low and careful. I heard about you and Carol. I'm sorry. Thank you. Listen, I'm calling because I feel like I owe you something. We worked together for years, and you always had my back. He paused. I've been noticing some irregularities in David Chen's accounts. He's been using company funds for personal expenses, large amounts, luxury trips, high-end restaurants, hotels. He's been covering it up through creative accounting. But I started digging after Carol announced she was leaving you for him. I sat up straighter in my car, watching the lunchtime traffic pass by on Madison Avenue. What kind of amounts? North of $80,000 over the past year. Embezzlement, William. Clear cut. He's been funding his affair with Carol using Prestige's money. I processed this information methodically, carefully. Why are you telling me this? Because David's a predator. He's done this before. Pursued married women in the company. Promised them the world. Use them, then move on. Carol's not the first. She's just the most recent. Tom exhaled heavily. And because I have evidence. Receipts, transfers, credit card statements. If you need leverage in your divorce, this is it. I need you to send me everything you have. I said quietly. Encrypted. You know how. Already prepared. Check your secure email in 10 minutes. He paused. William? Destroy him. That evening, I reviewed Tom's files in my home office. The door locked, the blinds drawn. The evidence was damning. Detailed spreadsheets showing corporate card charges for hotels during the exact dates Carol had claimed she was at real estate conferences. Restaurant bills for 2 at places she'd told me she was meeting clients. Transfers from Prestige's discretionary accounts to David's personal checking, disguised as client development expenses, but with no corresponding client records. David Chun had been systematically embezzling from his own company to fund his affair with my wife. And Carol had been a willing participant, enjoying the luxury lifestyle without asking where the money came from, or perhaps knowing exactly where it came from and not caring. One exchange of text messages, recovered from the company's server logs, caught my attention. David, the Napa trip is set. First-class flights, 5-star resort. You deserve this, baby. Carol, you're so generous. William would never think to do something like this. David, William's content with mediocrity. You were meant for more. They'd gone to Napa in July. Carol had told me it was a training conference in Sacramento. I'd stayed home and repaired the fence in the backyard. I copied everything to an encrypted drive. Then I called Marcus. I have something, I said. Something significant. The settlement meeting was scheduled for Marcus's conference room on a gray October afternoon. The kind of day where Cincinnati's weather can't decide between rain and something worse. I arrived 30 minutes early, reviewed our strategy with Marcus, drank bad conference room coffee, and waited. Carol entered at exactly 2 p.m., flanked by her attorney, a woman named Sandra Howell. Mid-40s, expensive suit, practiced smile. Davidson wasn't with them, which surprised me. Where's David? I asked as they settled into their chairs. Carol's jaw tightened. This is between us, William. He doesn't need to be here. Interesting. I opened my folder. Since he's been funding your new life with embezzled corporate funds, I thought he might want to hear our settlement terms. The color drained from Carol's face. Sandra Howell's smile vanished. I don't know what you're talking about, Carol said, but her voice wavered. Marcus slid a thin folder across the conference table. These are copies. We have the originals. Of course. Credit card statements, transfer records, text message logs. All showing your client's participation in David Chen's systematic embezzlement from Prestige Realty Group. Sandra opened the folder with careful, practiced hands. Her expression remained neutral, but I saw her eyes widen slightly as she scanned the documents. These are private communications, she said carefully. Obtained without authorization. These are corporate records, Marcus corrected. Provided by a company VP who noticed financial irregularities and felt obligated to investigate. Completely legal and quite damning. Carol stared at me across the table. You wouldn't. Wouldn't what? I asked quietly. Report corporate embezzlement? Protect myself. You don't understand, she said. And for the first time since it started, her voice cracked with genuine emotion. David said it was just creative accounting. That all executives did it. It was part of his compensation package. It wasn't, I said, and I think you knew that, Carol. Sandra leaned toward Carol, whispering urgently. Carol shook her head several times, but Sandra insisted. Finally, Sandra turned back to us. What do you want? Marcus smiled thinly. A clean divorce. Mrs. Hartley signs away all claims to Mr. Hartley's assets, except a one-time settlement of $35,000, and agrees to a non-disclosure agreement regarding both the marriage and Mr. Chen's financial activities. And if we refuse? Sandra asked. Then we forward these documents to Prestige's board of directors, their legal department, and the Cincinnati Police Department's white-collar crime unit. Marcus said pleasantly, "Your choice." Carol's hands were shaking. "You're blackmailing me." "No," I said, meeting her eyes. "I'm protecting myself. You tried to take my retirement. You conspired with a man who was stealing from his own company. Now you're facing the consequences." Sandra requested a private consultation. They left the conference room, and I could see them through the glass walls, Carol gesturing frantically while Sandra spoke in measured, controlled tones. 20 minutes later, they returned. "My client agrees to your terms," Sandra said, with one modification. She wants immunity from any legal consequences related to Mr. Chen's activities. Marcus looked at me. I considered the woman sitting across from me. 20 years of marriage. Our daughters facing the photos that still hung in my house. The life we'd built that had somehow rotted from the inside. "Agreed," I said, "provided the settlement is signed today and the divorce process without further contest. And Carol never contacts me again outside of matters directly related to Jessica." Sandra nodded. "We'll need an hour to review the final documentation." "Already prepared," Marcus said, producing the papers. 2 hours later, it was done. Carol signed away her claims to my restructured assets in exchange for $35,000. Enough to get her started somewhere, not enough to fund the lifestyle David had promised her. The house would be sold, with all proceeds going to me. No alimony, no ongoing contact. As she stood to leave, Carol paused at the door of the conference room. "Was I really that bad?" she asked quietly. "That you had to protect yourself from me?" I thought about the midnight calls, the lies, the casual cruelty of her dismissal, the attempt to empty our retirement account. "You became someone I didn't recognize," I said truthfully. "And yes, I had to protect myself." She left without another word, Sandra following behind her with the signed documents. Marcus shook my hand. "Congratulations. The divorce will be final in 90 days. "What about David?" I asked. "Not your problem," Marcus started, then stopped when he saw my expression. "What are you thinking? That Prestige deserves to know what kind of man they have running their luxury division. They have a right to protect their company." Marcus considered this. "Technically, our agreement only prevents you from filing criminal charges or reporting Carol's involvement. It says nothing about forwarding evidence of David's embezzlement to his employer." That evening, I crafted an anonymous email, carefully selected documents showing only David's financial manipulations, nothing that would directly implicate Carol. I sent them to Prestige's CEO, their board directors, and their internal compliance department. Then I deleted the anonymous email account and went to bed. The Cincinnati Business Journal ran a brief article 5 days later. Prestige Realty executive resigns amid internal investigation. David Chen had left Prestige effective immediately. No official reason was given, but sources close to the matter suggested financial irregularities. Carol texted me once, the day the article ran. "I know it was you." I didn't respond. Some equations balanced themselves. 3 weeks later, Tom called me. "David's finished in the city," he said. "He's reportedly heading to Arizona, but Prestige is pursuing criminal charges. The DA's office is investigating." And Carol left town last week. Someone said she took a job with a small property management company in Phoenix. Entry level, significant pay cut. I thanked him and ended the call. I felt no satisfaction at the news, just a dull acknowledgement of financial reality, actions and consequences. The divorce was finalized on December 15th, a cold Tuesday morning with snow threatening. I drove to Marcus's office, signed the final papers, accepted my copy of the decree. "How do you feel?" Marcus asked. "Lighter," I admitted, like I finally woke up from a long, uncomfortable dream. That evening, I received an email from Jessica. She'd been away at Ohio State through most of the divorce, and I tried to shield her from the worst of it. She knew her parents were splitting up. She didn't need to know about the embezzlement or the betrayal. "Dad," she wrote, "I'm coming home for Christmas break. I know this has been hard. I just want you to know I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself. Love you. See you soon." I read it 3 times, then closed my laptop and allowed myself to feel something I hadn't felt in months. Pride, not in destroying Carol or David, but in finally recognizing my own worth. 3 months later, in early March, I walked into the Cincinnati Public Library's reference section. I'd been coming here once a week since January, doing research for a security consulting side project. It was quiet work, methodical, the kind that let my mind rest. The head librarian was named Diane. She was maybe 50, with gray streak hair she wore in a practical bun, reading glasses on a beaded chain, and a gentle smile that seemed permanently affixed to her face. We'd struck up a conversation about historical architecture after I'd asked for help finding construction records from the 1920s. That conversation had turned into weekly chats while she checked out my research materials. Then into coffee at the library's small cafe. Then into a dinner invitation that I'd nervously accepted. Our first date was at a small Italian place in Clifton, the kind of neighborhood restaurant with checkered tablecloths and actual candles. We talked about Cincinnati's history, about library science and financial security systems, about hiking trails in the surrounding counties. Diane had been married before, she told me. Her husband had died of cancer 6 years ago. She'd buried herself in work, in books, in the quiet routine of the library. Only recently had she felt ready to try again. "I'm not looking for fireworks," she said, smiling over her pasta. "I had that once. It was wonderful. But now I just want someone kind. Someone steady." "I can do steady," I said. Our second date was a hike at Mount Airy Forest. Our third was a cooking class where we both laughed at our terrible attempts at making risotto. Now, 3 months in, I found myself looking forward to Friday evenings when we'd meet at the library after a shift. Simple dates. Quiet conversation. No drama. No lies. Just 2 people who've been hurt before, trying carefully to build something honest. 1 year and 2 months after Carol's phone call, I stood in the foyer of my new home in Oakley. It was smaller than the house Carol and I had shared. A modest 3-bedroom craftsman with a view of the park from the back porch. No imported Italian tile. No state-of-the-art kitchen. Just a solid, well-built home that was entirely mine. The sale of the marital house had finalized in February. After settling the mortgage, the proceeds had added to my retirement fund. The same fund Carol had tried to empty. I'd used some of it to set up a scholarship at the University of Cincinnati's Business School. The Ethical Financial Practices Scholarship, awarded annually to students pursuing careers in financial security and compliance. A small way of transforming what Carol had tried to steal into something constructive. Through mutual acquaintances, Cincinnati being a small city in many ways, I'd heard occasional updates about Carol. She was still in Phoenix, still working in property management. She'd apparently broken things off with David after his legal troubles intensified. Last I'd heard, she was dating a divorce accountant and living in a modest apartment. A simpler life than she'd envisioned, but maybe, I thought occasionally, an honest one. I didn't wish her harm. I didn't wish her anything at all. She'd become a chapter in my history. Painful, yes, but finished. My phone buzzed. A text from Diane. "Still on for dinner tonight? I found a new hiking trail in East Fork I want to tell you about." I smiled and typed back. 6:30. Looking forward to it. Jessica was coming home for a spring break next week. She'd asked if she could meet Diane, which felt significant. My daughter's approval mattered more than I'd expected it to. I adjusted my tie in the hallway mirror. I still wore ties, even though I'd left my corporate position 6 months ago to start my own security consulting firm. Old habits. The business was small but growing. I specialize in financial security systems for mid-sized companies, designing protocols that protected assets without the bloated bureaucracy of larger firms. It was fulfilling work, honest work, and entirely on my terms. As I locked the door behind me, I thought about the past year, the betrayal, the calculation, the strange, methodical way I protected myself while my marriage crumbled. Some people might call what I did revenge. I didn't see it that way. Revenge is emotional, reactive. What I'd done was strategic, protective. I'd simply used the skills I'd spent a lifetime developing to safeguard my own future. Carol had tried to break into our account, to take what she believed was rightfully hers without conversation or compromise. But the one thing she'd never been able to crack, the one security system she couldn't bypass, was me. I drove toward Diane's apartment, the spring evening settling over Cincinnati with that perfect golden light that made the city beautiful. The Ohio River gleamed in the distance. The hills rolled away toward Kentucky. Some calculations I'd learned take time to balance. But eventually, they always do. The numbers had been right all along. But more importantly, I'd finally gotten the human equation right as well. My life wasn't exciting. It probably never would be. But it was mine, built on honesty, stability, and the quiet satisfaction of work done well. And that, I realized as I pulled into Diane's parking lot and saw her waiting on the steps with a smile, was worth more than any six-figure account. She tried to empty our joint savings. She forgot I'm the one who set up the security protocols. But more than that, she forgot that the real security isn't in the systems you build. It's in knowing your own worth. Please like, comment, and share. If this is your first time watching my video, don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you'll be notified whenever I post a new story.